So this video is to look at lead allocation and creation. And this is for lead going directly into Inquiry Max. So we've had some feedback from different dealer groups as to how they like to look after their leads, which I think is worthwhile noting and spreading that feedback across our clients. So parts of this process you'll absolutely be doing every day anyway, but hopefully there's some nuggets of information that you might be able to start to use in your own retailer. So let's just zoom in a touch. Okay, so we're going to use Mr. ADV as our example. Okay, so Mr. ADV is our lead. So lead comes in, first thing you do is click on the lead info and you find a unique identifier, so a phone number or an email address or a postcode or something, and you pop that number in the top there and search to see if the customer exists on your database. Okay, so there's Mr. ADV, we know he's on the database, there's his phone number. So first thing you do, go into it, so you know he's on the database, but do they have a live inquiry? So click into the customer record, click vehicle inquiries. So there is no current vehicle inquiry for this customer. We know that it currently belongs to Mark Spellman, so if we're going to allocate it to someone, probably might be an idea to allocate it back to that user. Otherwise, if we allocate it to a different user, bear in mind that they can load the inquiry, but it will still the owner of the customer will still be Mark Spellman. So let's just we're going to go through that. So we're going to load this inquiry because the customer is currently a lost opportunity. We need to get him to a live current vehicle inquiry. So back into our daily log, into our group leads. Just going to do it by name. So there's Mr. ADV. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to allocate that to Darren Coles. Okay, so allocate it and then click on the save tick. That's then been allocated. So you can see that's allocated. Now, if I've made a mistake and I don't want to allocate it to Darren Coles, all I need to do is click on the save icon there and that will pull it back to unallocated again. Okay, so it's now unallocated and I can give it to someone different. Okay, so you can retrieve a lead as long as it's not being accepted by the end user. Okay, so I'm going to click the tick and that's now been allocated to Darren Coles. So I'm now going to log in as Darren Coles. So log out as my sales manager, log in as my sales exec. Okay, right, so if I go into my leads tab, Mr. ADV is there waiting to be actioned. Again, as a sales exec, click on the information icon, have a look at it. Again, as a sales exec, I would probably recommend you do exactly the same thing that the manager's just done and you do a bit of research, find out who the customer is, have they been in before, what have they been doing, who have they seen, who are they speaking to. So, as a sales exec, as Darren, I am Darren Coles. I can see it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to my colleague, Mark Spellman. It's got a few part exchanges there. Customers been in, and got a couple of basic notes. But if I click on vehicle inquiries, I can see there is no inquiry for it. So, back to my leads tab to progress this into an inquiry. So, there's Mr. ADV. Accept. So, pulls through the customer record and then click continue. It's always going to do a duplicate search. Now we know it's on the system already because we've obviously looked in the search customers tab in the top right hand corner. So because we know the customer's on the system and we know it's the right customer, if I hover over it I can get some detail. It will tell you if the customer's been into any other retailers. So on this right hand side you can see what retailer name and also the salesperson they've been dealing with. So I'm going to click on the tick, the select tick, click that. So now I'm not creating another new customer, I'm just merging into the current one. Okay, so there's my lead info down the bottom, so I can see what the lead is. There it is again, what we've looked at as a third time we've brought that up now, and that's come in through whichever source of inquiry. So we'll say it's Auto Trader in this example. So when I save that record, that's now an inquiry. Okay, but it's not going to be in my calendar because it belonged to Mark Spellman. It might need transferring across to you guys now, or across to the new user. Okay, so if that customer decided to put another lead in, so we've got this lead for a brochure, for instance, and then they decide that they actually want to take it a step further and book a test drive. What we would recommend the process would be is that let's log in back in as a manager. So if another lead comes in for Mr. ADV, so we'll just imagine this is our example there. Okay, so let's imagine we click on the info and the lead has come in and it's a test drive. Lead type is test drive. Because you've already got the customer on the go, we would expect you to reject that lead. Otherwise you're going to end up with duplicate inquiries. We would expect you to reject that lead, but then go into the customer's record and add a note to it. So there's Mr. ADV. So all we need to do is go into make sure we're in the right vehicle inquiry, so our active prospect. So this is our inquiry that we've just loaded. So we go into it and add a note. So new lead, 5th of the 10th at 14:56. Test drive request rejected due to lead already being live on Emacs. Okay, so now I've got proof that the lead came in, a second lead came in, but I've dealt with it. I don't need to load it again, otherwise we're going to end up with another duplicate customer. If I go into my calendar now and see if we can see Mr. ADV, so there it is. I'm in as Mark Spellman. Bear in mind it was Darren Coles that actioned it. So for this to be in Darren Cole's diary, we would need to do a transfer, but I'll do that in a second. So Mr. ADV, we've contacted the customer, we've telephoned them. Contact notes are demo booked, for instance, and we'll put it in for an appointment on Friday for a test drive at 2 o'clock, and that is in a BMW 2 Series. So once I've saved that, that's my lead actioned. My reporting, everything's now bang up to date. My lead list will show that the customer's been in and been created into a lead. So if I go into my leads reporting or activity reports, that's all present. The last thing is to give it to the correct owner. So in the daily log, there's Mr. ADV connected to Mark Spellman. It's not Mark Spellman, so we click onto the number one, transfer the customer, give it to Darren Coles, so Darren can do that test drive, follow up the customer, etc. And that's it really. So that's quite a quick process. It's just making sure that the leads that come in, you take a bit of time to research the lead first to see if it's active. Or see if it's on the database first, then to see if it's active. If it's got an active inquiry, you would reject subsequent leads, otherwise you will end up with duplication, unless the customer says that they're interested in purchasing multiple vehicles. You might decide to have an inquiry set up for a BMW 2 Series and another inquiry set up for a BMW X5 or something, if that's required. But we always recommend at InquiryMax you phone every single lead. You reach out to every single digital lead, but you don't necessarily turn every single digital lead into an inquiry, because as I said, it can come up with duplication. So bear in mind you've got the duplicate search for the customer, and then you're obviously duplicate for the inquiry as well.